body is still curing from its final clear coat, the chassis is now all nicely finished and detailed up, so that leaves me with the interior for now. All the parts were cut out from the sprues, cleaned up a bit, and some were glued together, as you can see here with the steering column and the steering wheel, and then I could move on to applying a couple of light coats of primer and painting them in various different colors. The main color for the interior is going to be white, so I firstly applied a lot of coats of white on the interior parts, let that cure for a while, and then moved on to masking some of those parts off. Coming to think of it though, it might have been better if I had laid down a nice base coat of silver first before applying all these white coats, as it really took a long time for the white to cover nicely. Nonetheless, I moved on to masking and then applying the second color to that interior. With the masking all finished up, I just mixed up the red and poured it in the airbrush and lightly applied 2 or 3 layers of red to make sure that it was fully covered. After finishing that final coat of red, I gave it a couple of minutes to dry up and then moved on to unmasking all these parts. So as usual, the interior parts are now all painted in their first and some even in their second color, so I could move on to adding some flocking. I firstly laid down a glue layer of enamel paints from Humbrol. It's just a satin black, and on top of that I will be adding the flocking from Scale Production. To further detail out the interior parts, I of course also took out some of my Vallejo paints to add some black highlights on the interior panels, in this case on the speakers, and also did the same to the dashboard, coloring the gas pedal and also doing something with that radio. To add to the black detailing, I also added a bit of silver, mainly on the steering wheel. A couple other parts like the window controls, some knobs on the dashboard, and even the door pulls on the inside were just painted with a monochrome paint pen for that chromey look. Since the bench seat is pretty big and open, it would be really dull if I didn't really add any details to it, so I decided to cut some of the Scale Production seat belts and then just glue them in place. I didn't really have any of those classic style seatbelt buckles laying around, so I just made them myself from a bit of plastic card, just cut some small squares, glued them in place, and then painted them silver with my monochrome paint pen. With that all done, a couple of the final details were added with the decals, and then I could just move on to gluing everything together with some super glue.